Today's video is all about toe walking, so stick around. Hey guys, welcome back to Pediatric Therapy Essentials. My name is Dr. Heather Sossaman and I'm a pediatric physical therapist. And in today's video, we are going to look into the topic of toe walking. We're going to talk about what toe walking is, we're going to talk about conditions and reasons why toe walking may occur, and we're going to talk about why I think it's important as a physical therapist, and finally, we're going to wrap up with some fun activities that you can use to help kids that are toe walking. Now, if you want to pop around in this video to the different sections, I have time-stamped everything, so feel free to check the description box for that information. So what is toe walking? Well, toe walking is a gait pattern or a pattern of walking that some children may develop, and it looks exactly like it sounds. Children that toe walk step from the ball of one foot to the ball of the other foot without having their entire foot come into contact with the ground. Now, every single person on the planet has a gait or walking pattern that is specific to them, but most of us follow a heel-toe gait pattern. And a heel-toe gait pattern, again, sounds exactly like what it is. When we walk, we initially touch the ground with the heel of our foot, we slowly load all of our weight onto our full foot, and then we roll forward and come off of our toes to take another step. And this pattern continues over and over again. Now, when children learn to walk, they don't immediately start using this more mature heel-toe gait pattern, right? If you've ever watched a baby learn to walk, you notice that they place their entire foot on the ground and kind of plod along until they develop this more mature pattern. And as they're developing this pattern, they do experiment with toe walking. They come up on their toes to reach things, they walk around on their toes to just figure out what it feels like, and toe walking is a very important part of development. But some children get kind of stuck on this toe walking pattern, and that becomes the only pattern that they use on a day-to-day basis. So why do children toe walk? Well, our body tends to use the pattern of movement that is most efficient. So heel-toe gait pattern is a very efficient pattern of movement, and that's why our body uses it. It's what our body was built to do. So if children are using a more inefficient pattern and a pattern that's asking muscles and joints to do things that they weren't necessarily designed to do, then we gotta need to figure out why that's happening. The first is a medical condition. So conditions like cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, tethered spinal cord, and many others can lead to a pattern of toe walking. Oftentimes, it's because these individuals have altered muscle tone, which is the tension in a muscle. And if you'd like to know more about muscle tone, I do have an entire video about it. It's kind of a complex subject, but I will link that topic up here. The second reason is that a child may have some sensory issues or challenges. So if a child is what we call sensory defensive or resistant to sensory input, especially on the bottom of the foot, they may go up on their toes to limit the amount of sensory input they're getting from the bottom of their foot. A child may also be what we call sensory seeking, in that they're seeking out sensory input, and by being up on their toes, they're getting a lot more input than they would if they were down on a flat foot. Third, there's a possibility that there are vision or balance issues at play that could be affecting a child's walking pattern and leading to toe walking. And finally, if all of those other categories have been eliminated, then we consider a child to be an idiopathic toe walker, which means we don't really know why it's happening. And it's what we call an exclusionary diagnosis, which means that everything else has been looked at. It is not the reason for the toe walking, so we just kind of don't know. So if a child is happy toe walking and they're moving around their environment and enjoying themselves, why do I as a physical therapist care that they're toe walking, right? What's the big deal? Well, there are different opinions by different medical providers, and so I'm going to simply give you my opinion as a physical therapist that's been doing this for quite some time. I do have some research information about the reasons why and the effects of toe walking, and I will link all of those articles in the description box below. As well, they will be in the blog post on my website, pediatrictherapyessentials.com. But there's 3 important reasons to me that toe walking needs to be looked at and addressed. And the first one is the impact on our musculoskeletal system. So the part of our body that includes our bones, our muscles, our tendons, and our joints. That musculoskeletal system can be impacted by toe walking. And there's a couple things we look at. The first one is that when we stay in one position for a long period of time, the structures of our body, including our muscles, bones, joints, tendons, and all those things, kind of want to stay in whatever position we put them in. Now, if you're an individual that works at a desk during the day, you can understand what I'm talking about. If you stay in the sitting position all day long and you don't get up and you don't stretch and you don't do anything else, when you try to go home at the end of the day, you're going to feel a lot of tightness and discomfort in the back of your legs and probably your low back. And that's because our body wants to stay in the position that we put it in. So if you think about a child that's toe walking, they are up on their toes with their calf muscles, which are those muscles in the back of our leg, in what we call a shortened position. So our muscles can be in a long position or a shortened position. So if you think of a bicep, when your arm is straight all the way out, your bicep is lengthened. When you flex and you show your big muscles, your bicep is now in a shortened position. So when a child toe walks, they are placing the muscles in the back of their calf in a shortened position. And if they stay in that position for a very long period of time, unfortunately, those muscles can get stuck. And truly the only way to change that is through surgery, which we want to avoid. The second thing we want to consider is the impact that walking on structures that weren't designed for walking may have in the long run. Now, as a physical therapist, I am always thinking about the possibility of pain and joint structure later in life. So even if I'm looking at a 3 and 4-year-old little boy or girl, I'm thinking, what impact is the way that they're moving now going to have on their body later on? Because if we're using structures to walk that weren't designed to take all that pounding and all that force, over time, those structures are going to become damaged, and more likely than not, you're going to end up with pain long term. So we want to avoid that. Now let's talk about what kind of an impact toe walking can have on our neurologic system. And when you watch a baby learn to walk, you see that they do a lot of big movements as they walk, and they're trying to figure out where their body is in space, how to walk without falling down. And a large part of that process is them getting a lot of great sensory input on the bottom side of their foot. So as they step forward and they lean really far in one direction, they may fall down. And if they keep practicing over and over again, all that sensory input on the bottom of their foot is going to say, hey, I remember that when I feel all this pressure over here, we fall down. We don't want to do that. So let's make an adjustment. So when a child is walking on their toes, they're missing out on all that great input and all that great motor learning that comes from receiving information from the environment, processing it, and learning how to move. And finally, we have to think about a child's gross motor development. So if a child is learning to walk, run, jump, skip, and hop when they're on their toes, it's going to be a lot more difficult, and more often than not, they're going to be delayed. Now, if you have ever worn high heels and you think about how difficult it is to move in that position, I cannot wear them because I fall down. That is what it feels like for a child who's toe walking. So imagine being in a pair of high heels and trying to learn how to stand on one foot or jump or hop or skip. It's gonna be a lot harder, and it's gonna make it take longer and have them end up with delays. So now that we know what toe walking is, we know why it happens and why it's important, let's talk about some fun activities that you can do to encourage kids to bring those feet down. Now before we jump in, I want to tell you 2 quick things. The first one is that all of the activities that I'm going to tell you about today are available in a free printable on my website, which is pediatrictherapyessentials.com, and if you go to the freebies tab, you'll find the handout there. Second of all, if you're finding value from this video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit the like button down below. It really helps me out, and if you'd like to see more content like this, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. All right, let's dive into those activities. So the first activity is what we call gentle range of motion or stretching. Now, there's a lot of research and a lot of discussion happening in the world of physical therapy about stretching and its efficacy. And again, I will leave the articles that I'm talking about down in the description box as well as on my website. But for me, I feel like intensive bouts of stretching are really not going to make a long-term impact. The research suggests that activities that are task-based and functional in nature have a longer efficacy, and they're much more productive in terms of therapy. So that is what I focus on. However, I do feel like stretching and range of motion has a place. So when we gently stretch and move the joints, we are getting the muscles and joints all warmed up for movement, we're lubricating things, and we're giving a child a chance to understand what part of the body we're going to work on and what area we're going to be moving through. So in order to range and stretch the muscles of the calf, this is how we do it. Begin with your child in a comfortable position, maybe lying on their bed or in a comfy chair. Then take your first hand, hand A, and place it under their calf to support their leg. Next, take hand B and place it on the underside of their foot. To perform this stretch, slowly place pressure through hand B, moving the foot towards the knee. As you perform the stretch, be sure that you're moving the entire foot and ankle and not just the toes. So next, we're going to encourage kids to walk on soft surfaces or surfaces that I would consider unstable. So things like pillows, sofa cushions, if you have those foam blocks that kids play in, Bozu balls, discs, and wedges, any of those surfaces that are soft are going to come up to meet the child's foot so that they start to feel what it's like to have full contact on the bottom of their foot. And it's going to encourage them to come down a little bit off their toes and back onto their full foot. So you can play tons of games with these activities. You can walk across them to make an obstacle course. You can just dance and do a movement video while you're on one of these. I have a ton of those, by the way. This is the playlist up here. You can play catch. You can play Simon Says. There's a ton of different things you can do on these cushions or mobile surfaces. Number 3 is standing on an incline. So once a child is more comfortable with bringing that foot down, we like to encourage them to lengthen those muscles in the back of their calf by standing on an inclined surface. And just like with the soft, squishy type surfaces, there's a ton of things you can do on here. By playing card games, you can play catch, you can play Simon Says, movement videos, all those kinds of same things you can do on an incline. Next, we have squats. So bending down to the floor to pick things up, like helping mommy unload the dishwasher, or, oh no, I dropped a bunch of things on the floor, can you help mommy pick them up? Games like that and the squat position are great, again, for lengthening those muscles in the back of the calf and encouraging strengthening and movement at the ankle. So if your child enjoys their feet being touched, a great way to teach them how to pull their foot up and keep it out of that toe-pointed position is to play a tickling game. If you tickle the bottom of a child's foot, they're gonna pull the foot up a little bit and start to experience what that movement feels like. Again, a fun, silly activity that you can do with your kid. And the last position that I have for you is what we call a half kneeling position. And in this position, again, you can play lots of games. One of my favorite is to roll a ball back and forth and try not to let it get past the other person. The beauty of that position is that you are really moving that front foot back and forth, and that ankle is getting a lot of great movement and helping with increasing range of motion, increasing strength, and increasing awareness in the joint. Next, we have animal walks. So things like crab walk, bear walk, penguin walks, elephant walks, all of these fun animal walking activities encourage a child to bring their foot down to the ground, move their ankle, move their knees, and learn to kind of shift their weight back and forth over those feet. I do have, again, another video for animal walks, and I will link that one up here as well. And the last activity I have is scooter boards. So kids love scooter boards. It gives them a lot of great sensory input as they move across the ground. But if you sit on a scooter board and you try to pull yourself forward with your feet, guess what you have to do? You have to pick your toes up and start with your heel first, which is what we're trying to emulate in walking, which is why it's a great activity to do with toe walkers. Well, thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope you got some valuable content out of today's video. Don't forget to head over to the website and grab your free printable at pediatrictherapyessentials.com under the freebies tab. And if you did enjoy today's video, please remember to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more content from me during the week, I do post regularly on Instagram and Facebook, so be sure to follow me there. Well, I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful week, and I will see you next Saturday. Bye!